Hello everybody and welcome back. It's been a while. I apologize for the hiatus in this video series, but a lot of stuff has happened. In the last video I got all the parts, everything was here, and we were about to embark on putting it together and getting it to work. And then I got sick. Everybody started having COVID, and I suppose I did too, although for 2 weeks all the tests were negative. Yeah, but I was out for quite a while, which meant that some of the plants didn't work the way I had thought they would. And some of the work was actually not done by me, but the friends that helped me and the electrician that came by to make sure that I was doing everything correctly. And in the end, a lot happened. I'm not gonna bore you with just telling you. I'll just grab the camera and show you, because a lot has happened and it's working now, and it's working extremely well. So let's go and have a look at it. So here we are outside. This is on the roof, and these are the two modules that I got sent. And as you can see, they're already quite dirty because we had Sahara dust come over from Africa, and well, it's settled everywhere. And it hasn't been raining for, I don't know, 3 weeks now. So the solar array is working pretty much perfectly. So it's producing absolutely what it should produce, which is great. As for the mounting, some of the mounting parts that I had, like these mounts on the side here, they came with screws that were slightly too short. But that is something that you can just solve by going to Home Depot and just getting new ones. And all of that worked out perfectly. And as you can see, I've got room for another 2 modules, which is great. And yeah, the modules protect the roof from the weather, the rain, the sun. So that's going to last longer too. So really like that. So regarding the wiring under the modules, since I was sick when this was put up, I didn't really get to do a lot of that. The only thing that I can really say is that the wiring at the beginning when we put it up seemed really cheap, and the cables were really hard, but now that they've warmed up once or twice, that's gone away. I think it was just too cold when they were put up. I have not had any complaints. The inverter is actually mounted to the lower rail, facing up, so I can see the reflection of the status LED in the panel, and that makes it really easy to see if something's wrong and to kind of judge the production of the solar system, because it has blink signals for the range that it's working on right now. And although it's not super exact, it actually helps a lot. Inside the shed, this is one of the mounts that I made to distribute the load, because the roof is essentially just wooden planks, and these work really well. There's tons of materials here, so it can put on load either vertically or in the same direction as the mount. So it can push, it can pull, it can go everywhere, and there's just loads of material to take that up. This here is where the cable from the solar array and from the inverter actually comes into the house. And I was having problems with my 433 megahertz setup, and I added this ferrite, and yeah, it really worked out well. it just eliminated all of my problems. I'm actually thinking about getting a few more of these and adding them under the solar array, because, well, this thing shouldn't be causing any radio problems, but obviously it is. And this is the plug that actually attaches it to the power of the home, or power of the house. This is actually going into a second distribution box, where I have a current clamp on here, so I can monitor the current going into and coming from the solar array. And I can tell you that the solar array, when it's not running, is consuming about 4 watts for its own standby functions, because it needs to be able to sense the waveform and the voltage of the system that it's basically attached to, and it needs to base its own security function on that. So it does consume 4 watts when it's not running itself, when it's not producing power, but once it gets to producing power and having its own supply, it just stops with that. Also, I was able to discern that when you pull this thing, the inverter actually switches off within 0.2 seconds, basically absolutely on the mark where it's supposed to, and it kills the voltage. And when you attach it, it actually waits for 4 minutes before starting to put power into the grid. Apart from that, I have an Arduino hanging here. I'm using this to just document my power production and consumption, and I've had so many changes to this box that I've not really finished it up. It's going to end up in its own 3D printed enclosure, and it's going to be all pretty, but I'm just not there yet. And this thing is connected to the software that I use for measuring my consumption, my power generation, and all of that is based on the Radiohead network, which is basically a very simple packet radio connection going over 433 megahertz, and which has a range of about, I don't know, 50 meters when it's good, and 200 when it's excellent. And in my case, I'm around 25 going through walls and windows. Just on a side note, I did have a lot of problems with the cheap 433 megahertz transceivers, especially the sending units. They're super cheap, but some of them have a range of like around half a meter, even with an antenna on it. And I made this antenna here. It actually contains the sending unit and 2 copper wires measured to a specific length, so we end up with a quarter wave dipole. And this antenna is absolutely excellent. I think it increased the range tenfold over what I had before. So really, really nice thing. I'll probably be making a video about this antenna alone. And having all of my stuff on a Radiohead network makes it just so convenient. I don't have to rely on Wi-Fi. I don't need any really complicated Raspberry Pis doing whatever. I can just log this thing using an Arduino, and I can receive the messages really easily, and it's a super solution. The second thing that really changed for me was I got a new power meter, and no longer a Ferraris wheel, but it's better that way. Let's just leave it at that. This one is really, really easy to read because it's got a infrared diode that just pumps all of the settings out in as like a serial data stream. It is very easy to read when you know how to do it. It it took me a while to figure out what I was doing wrong when I was trying to read it, but this thing has a lot of information, especially regarding the power consumption on all the different lines, and it even tells you what you're feeding back into the grid, and I really like that. And that was one of the things that just happened. It just happened automatically. I registered my solar, and they gave me a call the next day, and they said they were going to bring this. Installation is going to cost me a bit, but I'll talk about that later. And this is going to go into the calculation of how long I have to be able to operate this to make a profit. And like on the outside, there's an Arduino connecting the meter up to my Radiohead network. And this is basically reporting the consumption that I take from the wall connection, and it reports the power that is going in, or if I'm supplying back to the grid, it reports that too. And it's very simple, and you can see I have one of the high gain 433 megahertz transceiver antennas on there, and ever since I've started using those, I had no more problems getting all of my settings reported to the gateway, where I can pass them on to an Arduino or another system for logging. And finally, this here is the head station and gateway of my Radiohead network, and this is collecting all of the information of power production, power consumption. It has some metering functions, although I did implement the meters in the sensors themselves, and the intelligent power meter that I have already does a lot of accumulation of data, and it is really easy to read. So what you can see right now is I have a solar production of 497 watts. This is underreporting. This has a couple of reasons, and I wanted it to underreport, so my estimates for how long this has to work are, well, they're more worst case than best case. And what you can also see is that I'm actually not pulling that much from the wall plug right now. There's a washing machine running. There's so much running in this house right now, and I'm almost able to cover it entirely just using those two panels, which is great, because that makes it so efficient for home use, because it's everything that I'm producing is actually going off my bill right away. And that is actually the point that I was trying to get to. Right, so we got solar power 497 watts up to now, and it's about 11:30. We have produced 1.2 kilowatt hours today. My usual production over a sunny day right now, with the solar panels being slightly dirty as they are right now, is around 3.3 to 3.5 kilowatt hours. Given that it's underreporting, I would think it's closer to 4.2, but it's kind of hard to say. This has to do a lot with the changing voltages on the rail, and the efficiency of the inverter changing then. When there's not a lot of load that I'm producing myself, the meter itself seems to have a very high resistance, so my local voltage can go up from the normal 225 to 230 volts up to about 235 to 238 volts at the plug where the solar array is connected, that has an impact on the power that I'm actually transmitting back, because you introduce a lot of losses. But as you can see right now, my consumption from the wall where I'm connected to the grid is fluctuating wildly, and if the washing machine wasn't running, then I would actually be producing power and sending it back into the grid. And yeah, that is where I wanted to get at. Now, I have a little notebook computer running here, just recording the data that I'm getting from my production and consumption and whatever over the day. And what you can clearly see is how much fluctuation I have in there right now. That is just based on the fact that any consumer here that has a certain wattage will just show up immediately once it crosses this threshold over what I'm producing. And once it's not consuming anything, it just drops down to almost nothing. What you can also see is that my average right now is way lower than it was this night when I was just pulling standby current on everything. And I really like that. There's also the red curve, which is showing my solar production in watts, and the green curve, which is showing solar production in watt hours over the day. And this will just give me a very clear indication of how much power I've been producing over the day. And this automatically resets at the end of each day. So I get a very good indication of where I am. Now you saw what happened those past weeks, and yeah, let's get into the numbers of this thing. So the whole kit, and I'm really sorry for that, it is no longer available because they're sold out. Probably going to reappear round about July this year. I've talked with the manufacturer and I've talked with the seller, and they're really nice. It's a small shop, and they're selling these really, really cheaply, and they're suffering for it. They have so much to do. Yeah, so the numbers. The whole kit, including shipping and everything, cost me about 850 euros to get here. The parts that I had to buy for connecting it to the grid came to another 25 euros. And the change of the power meter to my house is going to cost around 90 euros. So we're getting really close to 1,000 euros. So let's take that as a base. Given my power consumption that I have here, and that I'm located in the southwestern part of Germany, with my power prices for electric energy, it will take me about 3 to 3.5 years to produce enough electricity at the price that I'm paying right now to cover 1,000 euros that I used to buy this kit. If there's nothing wrong with it and it keeps running for that time, I will be in the clear. After 3 years, I will start producing power that actually pays off for me. That is a net gain. And given that this thing has a warranty of 15 years for the inverter and 25 years for the modules, I should be way in the clear with that. Actually working to lower my electric bill and having a long-lasting effect on that. With the energy prices just going up right now, that might happen a lot sooner. The reason for this is because I'm not actually selling anything back as an energy seller to the grid, and because I'm just producing energy that I'm consuming myself, I can actually deduct the whole price of the power. Usually if you have a much bigger power solar array and you're selling things back to your grid provider, you will never get the entire price that you're paying for your power. And that is the reason why this whole kit is so amazingly attractive. You can produce energy for yourself. You'll still be consuming it from the grid at night when you have bad weather, the winter, whatever. But you can have an impact on your consumption and the amount that you have to buy from the grid provider. And since that will always be deduced at the final buying price, including taxes and everything, this is the best deal that you can get. And if there's an answer to the question, was this a good idea and is this a good thing? The answer is yes, definitely, because it is just so attractive right now to produce a small amount of energy and maybe even feed some leftovers back into the grid, just stabilize it. Power is so incredibly expensive right now, and with the situations that are going on, it is not going to improve, not by a long shot. And so having a small investment for a small solar array that can help you lower your own consumption or the amount that you have to buy from the grid is just a great idea right now. And yeah, with that, I'm really happy that I did this, and I hope you like what you saw. And for that, thank you for watching. Bye bye.